All right, welcome folks to Last Week I Learned. I'm Jimmy Cerrone, and backed by popular demand is Andy Peterson. We're going to talk about home robotics today, and I want to start with, for us, we both work from home, we work remote, we've worked remote for a while. One of the biggest trends I saw in digging into this deep dive was basically all these business concerns moving into the home. So having stable Wi-Fi, consistent Wi-Fi, automation in terms of lights and locks and cameras. Like, one of the things I find really interesting, to take one example, is these ring cams that we have around our house and at the doorbell. This is basically a security system from a business. What I think is really interesting is the more I dug into this deep dive, the more I saw basically stuff that we used to do for companies and businesses moving into the home. And what I'm really curious about, Andy, to talk about between us is the pressure that puts on a homeowner to have almost IT skills. Like, everyone has to have IT skills. And I think we've talked about this before. We're software developers, but we're not necessarily IT folks. Like, we have friends, Andy and I, that can, manage a router and do the physical infrastructure of IT. I think, Andy, you and I have talked about how, like, we are software developers, not computer engineers. And, like, so I'm curious, you're a homeowner. How do you deal with basically having to know IT to run a house?
Yeah, it's really stressful for me because I bring this up a lot. I am not a computer person at all. I mean, in a sense, I'm working on computers all day, but like it's not energizing to work on like IoT setup in the house at all. So I personally try to minimize the amount of that sort of tech I put in the house. But there are a few
Okay.
things that do feel necessary. Like the ring is the perfect example. I got one of those. I had to get one of those because I'm the one that's always at the house with the remote work setup. It's nice to always have someone in the house. So if like a package that's dropped off, a contractors to come in, I have to know they're here, and I actually can't hear the doorbell back here
Oh,
in my office or anyone knocking on the door. So I did get a ring camera just so when someone rings the doorbell, it doesn't ring a physical doorbell anymore. It pings my phone, and I can look at the camera, see who it is, and decide if I have to go out there or if it's just like a neighbor boy that like wants to go play with the kids, and I can just ignore them or something like that. So,
that's
uh,
fascinating. I think it's funny you said IoT, because I remember, like, 5 or 10 years ago, before AI, before blockchain, it was IoT was the thing. And what I think is funny is we don't brand it that way anymore. Like, Ring Cam is not branded as IoT. A smart
yeah,
fridge is branded as smart fridge, not Internet of Things anymore,
yeah.
IoT.
Maybe it's like the
Uh,
circles that you hang out. I recently um, listened to a talk from somebody in the area about like the struggles of building IoT products and the barrier to entry it is to that industry. To have these things that are manufactured for like home use that can connect to other things and like the internet. Like it's I forget all the details, but it's quite the process to get stuff verified so it can work with like Matter and those sorts of standards. Like there's certifications and things you have to climb into that makes it really difficult to uh, get into the like get a product into that and to even start developing software for
mm,
those things to manage them.
I hadn't even thought about that. Now, that does remind me, my friend Neil Weeda and I in college tried to start a smoke detector company, as was, the trendy thing to do. Um, and that was one of the things we ran into was UL certification. Like, any electronic that goes into a home, it's like $1 million.
Yeah.
So we would have to raise, that was the problem we ran into, is like, we would have had to raise, like, I don't know, $10 million to even get something, probably more than that, probably like 50 million to get out the door.
Mhm.
And we
Yeah.
didn't do that. We raised $3,000, I think.
Yeah, and that's where it's like it's such a big leap, and I think this kind of goes into some of these other things we talked about. Is what's the capability of these devices? Like the devices I like to use that I feel like I can actually manage and handle as the IT administrator of my home is they tend to be simple, single-purpose things um, that that do provide some sort of value, more so that outweighs the complexity they add to like adding them to my network. Like right now, I have to worry about
Yeah,
like keeping my app updated and up to date for my doorbell. And I think recently it broke because I actually don't get notifications anymore on my doorbell. I have to figure out what's going on there. But that's crazy. Like I kind of wish I had the old days of going back to an, a physical noise on a doorbell.
yeah. Well, and that brings to mind, yeah, the maintenance. I hadn't thought about this. Like, what do you do if you're, let's take the Tesla robot. Tesla robot's wandering around the house and like trips and falls down the stairs. Like, where do you take that? Like, as these devices get more and more complicated, how do we repair them? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
I
I
didn't
guess
even think about that.
there's business opportunity. I mean, it's just like any other appliance, I guess, in our house. If we're talking about like automation, like you could tactically boil down like a dishwasher is like automation for some of the chores I used to do. But like those things break down, but those are actually kind of simple things. And I've been able, as a homeowner, I know how to fix those sorts of things, at least the small issues that arise. But as we think about like if we do get to this weird phase of humanoid robots walking around, which will be a separate subject. I think that's kind of where home automation has to go for me. If like home robots are going to be a thing, it has to be these humanoid things um, that are
Really
able to traverse our spaces. I don't that which I don't think it's going to happen, but
interesting.
like but now I'm on a tangent. But I have a little Roomba like to vacuum.
Mm,
The thing is fine, but it struggles to navigate the spaces where my house is kind of always a little bit cluttered because I have kids going around. They're moving chairs around the dining room table. They're just throwing their jackets on the floor, and that's like I can deal with that. I can walk around because the house is built for me. But this Roomba cannot. It's stuck on the floor. It can't like step over things. It can't do any of that. If I want something to eventually like farther automate my house, kind of do these menial tasks for me and automate those things away. Um, I see that like those things have to be able to like live in a space that was built for me and you. These like bipedal um, things that would have hands that can
mm.
walk around and scooch. The the Tesla vision of like building these robots and having them humanoid is so they can do the work in spaces that were created for humans. I think is very like while applicable to like factories and businesses, that's gonna have to move into the home if they're gonna want that same technology. Where I'm not building my home around robots that are less capable than myself. So
That's so. I think I come on the opposite, where I think the home is going to more and more resemble the factory, and we're going to start to standardize our homes in these, you know, consistent ways to adapt to robots. I also think that we're not going to have general robots. I think we're going to have particular ones. So I'm curious what you think. Like, yeah, I don't know. Do you think it's going to be a general robot, or do you think it's going to be specific? Because I think general is really hard. Like
mhm.
building a robot that could cut your grass, vacuum, do the dishes, that's a really tough robot. But we already have robots that do some parts of those, you know.
Yeah, and that's like kind of with the AI topic of like AI systems work really well if they are trained to do one specific things. Like I feel like that naturally has to follow with the home robotics idea, where a robot that's good at cutting my grass isn't necessarily good at washing my dishes. Um, but that
Yeah,
being said, I've yet to see a really compelling specific like robot with a use case like do something really well. Like my Roomba does not vacuum as well as I do. It does it slower, it's louder, it doesn't get everything. I might as well do it.
that's what I found it really insightful. This guy named Benedict Evans said that like LLMs are like unlimited dumb interns. And that feels like where we're at with like Roomba. It's like Roomba is kind of like me vacuuming when I was 15. My
Mhm.
mom was like, Jimmy, I don't have time. Can you vacuum? And it was like, okay, I do half of it. And I miss corners and, it's not very good.
Which you could argue is better than nothing, and that was the whole idea of like why I
Yeah.
wanted one was we can walk out of the house, and then while we're out of the house, you might as well just have that thing um, like clean up as best as it can.
Can you drive it? Can you Can you remote control it? Because
So
I
you
think that's
can.
what I would want to do.
So it's great. So you can do it, and it has a camera on it. So this also actually doubles. It's advertises this. It doubles as a security device. It can literally go into patrol mode and just make sure there's no intruders in your house. Now that's a stupid use case because like the other way I could do that is like I have my camera system with my Ring doorbells and the other connected cameras around the house. That would do the same thing. So like having just like a robot come around is if that ever saved my life, it'd be amazing. But uh, yeah, it's ridiculous. But it has a camera, it has eyes, it can kind of see what's going on, and I can. It's like it's I can play like Mario Kart virtually through it, but it's really laggy and not that much fun.
I kind of want to race. That would be fun. Is race Roombas. They have like a Roomba you can hack.
Mm.
It's like a kit that you can buy. And this, I'm going to go on a tangent here, which is what I really want. I want hackable open source versions of this. I want to be
Mm.
able to and this is what I was trying a little bit. I have an RC car and a tiny drone, and I was really hoping the tiny drone I could use to pick things up, but I'm so bad at flying it. It's so hard. And then two, my RC car, I might try to use it as a transportation device between rooms. But what I find interesting is these are not very developer friendly. The space doesn't seem to be. The closest I can find is there's this great company called Misty Robotics that I knew the founder of back in Colorado, and but it's like $3,200. It's so cool, but I'm not gonna spend. I spent $17 on my joke drone, and that's about my price range for dumb IoT devices. I spent $10 on a smart plug. That's my range right now. I
Yeah,
can't
which
imagine. Yeah.
and I'm curious to hear why, like, what exactly is not developer friendly. I have not like gone to that space much to kind of like program my own things. Like the closest I've gotten has been like this Roomba and this Ring doorbell. I like the idea that like if I'm gonna build something to do something specifically, I want it specific for my needs as well. So if I could have the control and the craftsmanship to kind of build that thing, it'd be great. And that's where I think the smart plug that you bring up, I was told that that's like the ultimate device because it's really easy to program something on and off, and you can get a lot of mileage out of just the smart plug um, related
And
to home automation.
I'm pretty sure this smart plug is just oh, what do you call it? Man, I'm forgetting my electrical engineering days. But it the devices that click on and off?
Yeah,
It's not a
I don't know the
switch,
name
but
either, but
I
yeah.
don't remember it. But I'm pretty sure it's just that, like with IoT slapped onto it,
Huh.
which is why it's $10.
Huh.
But that's interesting. I mean, it's. I think what would be fun is I want to like a plug-in ecosystem. Like that's what I love to some degree about apps like Raycast or I don't know. Yeah, let's do Raycast. It's like you can plug in anything you want. Like my Raycast connects to Spotify, so I can control songs from my Spotlight on my Mac, and I can do all kinds of fun stuff. I would love for it to be open source like that. And I think a generalized robot does get into that. Think about how much fun it would have to have an app store for a robot that you own. You could download games to it. You could teach it to dance if someone figured out. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And maybe that's where it's like you be the change you want to be in the world, Jimmy. And when you build your RC car with like a plug-in ecosystem, so I can start making it do like figure eights or something in your house,
Oh,
give you the program. So
because that's what I was thinking. Is I was like, ooh, I'll learn about autonomous driving by you know messing with my RC car. There's no autonomous driving RC car kits out there. I mean, there's some, but they're like $500, and I'm like, it's not that expensive. So what I found out you can do is I could solder an Arduino into the radio controller for the RC, and that's the closest I can get. And then I could slap cameras on top of it, and in theory that would work. That's a lot of work, though.
I know I have a box sitting actually right down here by my feet with a bunch of Arduino stuff that I want to really get into, and I started to, but like it was not necessarily. It takes a lot of time to get into. It's not necessarily hard,
It does.
but it is time consuming, and that's kind of goes back to the IT administration of my house. Is like I already have a lot of things I have to get to. So not only do I have time to build stuff, like maybe like questionable. Do I have time to maintain it if it starts doing something useful? Like definitely not.
Yeah. Well, and that's where I want to talk about failure modes, and we can wrap up on this, is like how do you do test-driven development with these devices? Like the downside risk is really high. I think that's part of why this hasn't taken hold is like these robots are big and unpredictable. Like factory robots are dangerous and there's intense protocols, and we're talking about bringing those into the home.
Hmm.
And how that, I don't know if you have any thoughts on how to test this. And the other thing is, it's like these highly variable environments. It's not like a factory floor. You're going to end up with really complicated environments for really big. Even the battery packs are
Hmm.
dangerous. If you think about to run a giant robot, like you're going to have a giant battery pack in your house, like sweet Lord.
Yeah, I had that scare recently too. I got my son a hoverboard for his birthday, and the battery went bad on it, so I was debugging it. I was like, I take off this thing, it's this huge battery inside of it, and then somebody showed me a video where like hoverboards are apparently known for just like spontaneously exploding. So it's no that kind of I have really I got concerns with big batteries as well, just kind of going up into flames.
Well, and then how do you, if this is controlled by code, I'm really curious, what are the regulations going to be around pushing updates? Like, this is where Tesla has gotten into trouble, where they're like, a firmware update, they're doing a
Mhm.
recall for a software problem. And how do you do that with a home robot? This is going to get really complicated. I'm actually just thinking about this.
Yeah, I know because I feel like the kind of work we do, it gets the code we write right now just gets into the homes of millions of people right now, and it's a lot of checks and balances that we have to do there. But thankfully, we're able to like push those like sort of updates to the web really quickly. But it's not so easy to push those like potentially dangerous fixes to these devices. I know, for example, my vacuum, it sat there for a while not being used, and then all of a sudden I did have like a billion updates I needed to due to it when I did try to turn it back on and try to get it back going. So, um, yeah, I don't. That's a very different modality of writing software that I don't have a good answer for like how I would try to like maximize development effort of writing software for these things.
Yeah, I think there's going to have to be some type of legislation or, I don't know, third party that verifies the software that's going out. Because I mean, even even security wise, like this could get really sketchy. This is in your home, if someone could take this over, that's crazy
Yeah.
and not unrealistic.
Yeah. Maybe there is regulation there. I don't know actually
I
outside
don't
much
either.
much outside the website world. I'd imagine there is because we always talk about like exploits with NPM. I think that came up today as well. There's some
Yeah.
exploit related to something in GitHub. I have to read up more about it. But those are just like we just kind of live with those. But because it's we can move pretty quickly on the web to patch those up. So I'm slightly less scared by that, but yeah, in the world here, in like the IoT space, the home robotics, all of a sudden it's like the stakes are a little bit more physical and real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny to imagine, but like, say I had five of my little drones. What if they like all got hacked at once and flew in a
Mhm.
phalanx?
Yeah.
Be crazy. I mean, the prank potential, very high here. Very
Yeah.
good pranks are going to be happening,
Well, this leads me
but
to like
it's
kind of one question
scary.
with like you have all these different devices that you're gathering, programming. The thing I struggle with from like how do I start writing software and start developing for these IoT things is I need a problem to solve. I can't just like start writing something and playing with them. Do you have like problems like I don't know. I wanted to ask you if you have a problem for me that I could solve with my IoT kit that I bought.
Well, I mean, part of the thing that I've been thinking about here is like, honestly, it doesn't feel super pressing, any of the problems. It's like, even I used to have this dream of like, waking up to a certain essential oil and the lights slowly dimming on and the temperature slowly rising and then the air coming on, and that would be like me waking up. But like, it's really not that much better than me like waking up, turning on the light, and then like doing my thing. Like, I do these things on my own. I have not found a killer use case for an IoT object. That's what I'll say is I do want the Nest thermostat. I do want that because my air conditioning unit is so dumb and it runs at stupid times.
I just
That's all.
installed one this week. I got one for free from my energy company, and I don't know. I was able to install it. That's about as techy as I got. I was very upset. We had a heat wave come through in this area, so I was very nervous that I wasn't going to be able to set it up correctly and be stuck in a warm house. But it appears to be working. But I can't tell you. We got it because it was just so tough to program our old one. You had to press a billion different buttons, and now I can set it on the phone. That was the only reason we wanted it. But
That's the reason I want it too. Is like I want to have a schedule. I don't want it to run at night, and then I want to be able to turn it off if I'm not home. And but how hard was it to install? I saw the pictures and I got a little nervous because there were wires, and I was like,
it
yikes.
depends how old your place is. But yeah, it is like I always play with electricity. If I have to go to my circuit breaker box and start flipping breakers, that's like I'm out of my wheelhouse. And I definitely
That's
felt
the
that this
limit.
week.
Okay, well, I might try it. I've been thinking about that, but maybe that's the question for the listeners here: is do you have any useful IoT devices? I mean, the Ring Cam sounds useful, right? I know a lot of people that get stuff out of that. Um, the Roomba feels like a very mixed bag. I could see a smart lawnmower being nice if it just ran around and mowed the lawn. Have you thought about those?
I have been thinking about those because I am kind of sick of walking around. I ended up, I bought a really cheap riding lawnmower just recently to kind of solve that problem, to not have to spend so long mowing the lawn. But I keep hearing people like instead of just buying a top of the line riding lawnmower that's like electric or something along those lines, something that's high tech, look into the automated thing because it's about the same price. I just don't trust that it's going to work. So I'm looking into
I don't
it.
either. I think that's my problem with a lot of these smart home things is it's cool, but I don't hate mowing the lawn.
Mhm.
I don't even hate doing the dishes. Like I don't know. I'm very fine. None of these are really pressing problems for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
We even this is what we found when we were doing the smoke detector startup is like we thought that would be people would care a ton about a smart smoke detector. And Nest tried this and had a really great smoke detector, and they got out of that business because people don't really care. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. That is interesting because it's like I I could easily get sold on something because it provides more safety to my house. And that seems like it'd
Hmm.
be right up the alley. Like I feel like if I'm gone, I do have these worries whenever I am away from the house. Like, what if I just come home to my house just burned down? I feel like I would feel a little bit better if I got pinged about it through my phone because I have a
Mm.
smart smoke alarm. But I guess that's not really a market. So
No, we certainly tried. Yeah. I mean, I feel like, to some degree, there's all these great kind of analogs for this stuff. Like, I think when it comes to the Ring doorbell, like, I just had a dog for a while, and he would let me know if there was someone at the door. So, oh man, I don't know. I'll have to think more on this. What the killer use case is.
Mhm.
Right now, it's just convenient, but complicated and risky. So I don't know. I'm coming away from this more pessimistic about a home robot because of
Yeah.
the security concerns and the downside risk. What are you thinking after this?
Yeah, I've always been pessimistic about home robots. I think I still am. But if Apple is getting in the game, which I hear Apple is trying to come up with a robotic something. I mean, I don't understand the use case of the product that I hear is rumored, where it's basically an iPad on an arm that can follow the caller wherever you're walking. I don't know what the use case is. I know there's like I think Facebook had like a portal or something that did something
Yeah,
similar, and I don't know. But if Apple is doing it, they tend to wait till a product line is a little bit more mature before diving into it. So if they are looking into diving into it, maybe it is the future. So I'm pessimistic, but like I'm watching to see
I
what
have one
happens.
more. I have one more thing that I think is useful and is going to happen. The smart home speakers. My prediction is those are going to become routers, and we won't have mesh networks anymore that are separate. We'll just buy 5 smart speakers and put them around the house, and that'll be your Wi-Fi. That's
Yeah.
my hot take. Do you have a prediction? That's my prediction.
Oh, prediction. Oh,
Yeah.
to put me on the spot, I think. Um, I mean, I guess my hot take is like we could have this conversation in probably another 5 years, and like we're still in the same state of IoT. Because I kind of feel like Roombas haven't gotten better since I've seen them 5 years ago, or even 10 years ago since they first came out. I don't think they were that much better, and they haven't made like those sorts of IoT devices have not made an impact on my life yet in the first however many years they've been around. So,
I like that. All right, in five
so
years we'll circle back on this. If you those that are listening, if you know of IoT things that are rocking your socks, let us know in the comments here. Thank you so much for joining me, Andy. Thank you for
yeah.
listening, folks, and have a wonderful rest of your day.